They just talked about all the things that are hanging in the air, if
Sure,
you will.
sure.
Tariffs.
Yeah.
You've got some conflicts around the world.
Yes.
And you've got the Air India crash.
Yes.
How much of a damper does that put on the overall demand outlook that you expect at this show this year?
Look, it has a big psychological impact. And I think we are expecting a little bit of more of a muted show. I mean, look, both Airbus and Boeing are all sold out to 2031 and 32 anyway. So how many follow-on orders into the 33, 34, 35 time frame are you really going to see? Obviously, again, horribly saddened about the Air India crash. But overall, the demand environment remains very robust. I mean, even over the course of the weekend, we have customers reaching out to us for additional aircraft, and 95% of our business is outside the United States. So overall, the bottom line is, although travel has been subdued a little bit and is softening in the U.S., the rest of the world is still very, very strong, and we still see a very strong demand for airplanes.
Boeing, understandably, coming off of that crash, or in light of that crash, is taking a more low-profile approach at this event.
Yes.
But you know Kelly Ortberg, and more importantly, you know the aircraft that they're delivering to you that you ultimately lease to your customers.
Yes.
Are they delivering a higher quality 737 MAX now than, let's say, a year or two ago?
They are, most definitely.
What's changed?
Their whole processes and focus on quality control and timely production. For example, we had our most recent notification of deliveries from them in November of this past year. And since that time, every single delivery has been pretty well on the clock, on spot. And to your question, importantly, the quality has been measurably better.
Engines and interiors.
Yes.
They're still the choke points,
Choke points, yeah, absolutely.
What is the issue?
On the engine side, it's a sheer inability to, no matter what the cost, produce enough engines to satisfy both the spare engine requirements that are needed in the field and the production aircraft. And then you layer on top of that possible addition of tariff complications and increasing pricing and that sort of thing. On the interior side, the choke point is very much on the seats. Overloaded with new interior specifications, certification from both FAA and EASA. And so therefore, a lot of the seat manufacturers are saying, hey, if you've got a new seat you want us to certify in 27, we may no bid it because we don't have the capacity.
And ultimately for your customers, do they have to take that into consideration?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's much better for them to implement an aircraft on a follow-on specification and a seat that's already been certified. But of course, they all want the newest, latest, greatest interior, and that includes seats. So that's a dynamic.
You mentioned the trade implications and tariffs.
Yes.
Where do things stand, and where do you expect them to fall out in terms of if you have an aircraft, let's say from Airbus, built in Europe, that you're going to be sending to the United States to a customer there?
Yes.
Are you going to have to pass along the tariff costs?
Well, in theory, a tariff, whether you're receiving the aircraft in the United States from Airbus or you're receiving a Boeing aircraft from Europe, is the responsibility of the importer. In this case, it's Boeing or Airbus. I'm sorry, in this case, it's the airline for either Boeing or Airbus products. So that remains to be seen. We don't have any airplanes coming in from Toulouse or Hamburg into the United States, so we have no current exposure there. But it's a consideration, absolutely.
Would you expect airlines to say, well, we were going to take 20 aircraft?
Yeah.
Let's dial that back a bit.
You would expect it, but we haven't really seen that, Phil. You've seen like Ed Bastian at Delta saying we're not going to pay tariffs. You've seen Ryanair, Michael O'Leary saying we're not going to pay tariffs. But somehow there's been no dilution of the pace of deliveries, et cetera, and that is still continuing. I think both sides of the Atlantic, I think the expectation from an industrial point of view is this will get sorted out over time, and I think the industry depends upon it.
The Middle East conflict.
Yes.
We've already seen people pull back in terms of their flights.
Yes.
That's short term.
Yeah, it is.
But long term, we expect a lot of Middle East airlines to place orders.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, President Trump just visited the Middle East. Kelly Ortberg was there. Qatar announced a big wide body order. That's going to continue, no doubt.
And finally, when you look at the aftermarket, no slowdown.
No slowdown whatsoever. No slowdown. I mean, the MROs are all full. Every single shop that's doing work has got, an 8-month, 1 year, 1.5 year wait time to get in. No slowdown.